Welcome to the Employee to Boss podcast, a podcast for everyone with an entrepreneurial spirit. Every week, I am joined by successful guests in all different industries and stages of business who will share what their experience was like transitioning from employee to boss. This is a resource for you if you're wanting to start a business, go all in on your side hustle, get to the next level in your thriving business, or just hear what it's like taking the leap to becoming your own boss. I'm your host, Haley Hayhurst, the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast production agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. Let's dive into today's topic. Hey, Kieryn. Welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to be chatting with you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. We are both in Seattle. You're moving soon, but we connected at a networking event, and when you told me what you did, I was like, oh my God, I wish I picked like a fun niche, like obviously what I do, I love, but I love what you do. And I'm really excited for the audience to learn more about you.
Yeah, so I am a social media and email marketer in some pretty fun industries. I like to call them the vices in cannabis, alcohol, and sex tech. So it's interesting because I get to be creative with how I run my marketing. There are a lot of regulations in each of those industries, and you kind of have to be careful with what you can do and what you can say and what you can't. So yeah, I get to be really, really, out of the box creative thinking and just, niche down into some really sometimes frustrating regulations, but in the end, like really rewarding ways.
No, that's really cool. How did you get to working in these vices industries? Tell us your journey from employee to boss.
Yeah, so I mean, it didn't, I think it's always kind of an organic flow. Like I didn't intentionally start in any of these industries. I was interning for like a fashion company in college, and when I graduated, the owner told me, "Hey, Washington State had just gone legal with adult recreational cannabis, and we were expanding into a lot of those, new spaces." And so she told me she was starting a luxury cannabis accessories company specifically targeted to women. And I was like, you don't know this, but I smoke a lot of weed every day. So I'm down. And so I kind of just like fell into the cannabis industry in a really lovely way. It didn't turn out super lovely. The company ended up getting bought out and things turned pretty toxic. And so I was like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. Not in the industry, but the company
Right.
specifically.
Mhm.
And I ended up leaving. But we had a lot of collaborators in the cannabis industry. And when they found out I left, they hit me up on the side and they said, "Hey, heard you left. We would love to work with you if you want to, consult with us." And I was like, yes, of course. That sounds awesome. So in an unintentional way, I just kind of kept getting more and more cannabis clients and word of mouth. So I decided to just really focus in that space. And then that was in 2018. So a few years ago, one of my cannabis industry colleagues posted on social media about her high school friend, who was a marketing director at a really cool craft distillery company, needing some social media help. And I was like, sure, I'm down for that. A lot of people don't know cannabis doesn't have a lot of money. Unfortunately, people think it does, but it really doesn't. Like all the money is with the big operators, which are usually toxic white men, unfortunately, as it goes. And so I kind of branched into spirits again. Like I fell into it because I just got connected with some cool people, and I was like, this is actually really fun. I kind of get to use that same part of my brain of being creative, and ended up, niching into spirits as well. I also found some cool clients that I was connected with that they sold like a period tracker, and I was like, well, this is awesome. And so yeah, just kind of again like getting connected. It's the right time, the right people, and yeah, being able to like go with the flow, but also getting really, really good and kind of developing my expertise in those areas.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love how it all started with that one boss that you were like, "Yes, I do smoke a lot of weed. I'd love
I
to
do, yeah.
work with you with that." I think that's really cool, and, to your point of being open to different opportunities, like, yeah, when you are open to any opportunities, it's easy to say yes to ones that are aligned with you. And so, if you have an interest in it, definitely go for it. And, what I really love about you being on the show is I feel like a lot of people, when they think about starting a business, are a little bit worried about like their clientele or what people are going to think about their product or all of these things that we get in our head about. But you have found your niche in something that not everyone likes to talk about, right? Like sex, drinking, smoking weed. These are things that people don't love, like society isn't like
Yeah,
open about.
yeah.
But you've created a business around that. So, you know, how did you get comfortable with being in these niches? Is it just the people that you knew and just getting your name out there?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things, especially in the cannabis industry, that I found was really hard for a lot of my clients was like putting a face behind the brand.
Mm.
And I, especially, this was before the pandemic, but even especially with the pandemic, like people wanted to know who they were giving their money to. You know what I mean? Like they wanted to know that it wasn't like they could trust the people that they were giving money to put things like in and on their bodies. And that was my biggest piece of advice to people was like, don't be afraid to like give people a face and a name. Like sure, a brand is great and branding is important, but like that was such a big key of like transparency, was especially once the pandemic started, like people really cared about that. So I was like, why am I not taking my own advice? You know what I mean? Like if I'm telling people don't be
I hate
afraid.
it when that happens.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just like, if I'm telling my clients to do these things, why am I not doing these things? Right.
Mhm.
I will be honest, my family doesn't know the entirety of what
Mm.
I do, because
Mhm.
there is like the cultural stigma, and my family just there would be a lot of sort of like cross-cultural and cross-language lingual, is that the
Yeah.
right word, barriers for me to cross with them specifically. So that I will say I am a little bit of a hypocrite about. But in general, yeah, I really just leaned into having like an open mind, not only for myself, but I think it's important, not just in the cannabis industry, but in any industry that you choose to work in, breaking the stigma a little bit. I think the more people that see someone that looks like them, consuming products or being open to talking about products that have a stigma behind them, whether that's sex, whether that's cannabis, it helps like open the dialogue more. And I think, yeah, I was such a big proponent of that helping my clients with their sales, that I was
Mhm.
like, it would help me as well as the consultant to just like open the doors and shout it to the world that this is what I do. And I have found, like, we started chatting at the networking event, and I'm not saying if I didn't have as fun, quote unquote, fun industries, that you wouldn't have come up and talked to me or anything like that, but it started a lot of cool conversations with people
Yeah.
once I like really embraced it and said, this is what I do, this is what I specialize in. And it's honestly probably started more interesting conversations than anything
Oh,
else.
I bet. I bet. Because I go to a ton of networking events and I am not like the most professional person, but like I do have a professional side of me.
Yeah,
But it's nice not having to not being professional, but being able to
sure.
be like myself around people, if that makes sense. And
Yeah,
so I'm sure when you tell people what you do and you have a very chill vibe to you, and so I'm sure people are more open to connecting with you on a deeper level than just like, oh, here's my business card, let's go get coffee sometime, those kind of conversations.
yeah, yeah. And I feel like there ends up being like a, I don't know if the stronger connection is the right word, but like a more like openness or
Mhm.
willingness to like keep the conversation going,
Yeah.
versus like oh, like let's catch up sometime and then never hear from each other
Oh
again,
my gosh, yeah, yeah, and even when let's think about it from, like, a business lens, when you get on a sales call with someone, if they're already feeling comfortable with you and, like, vulnerable and honest, they are way more likely to tell you what, like, their true pain points are in their business,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Especially with a lot of the business owners nowadays, like, we all try to be perfect, and we don't want anyone to know that,
yeah,
like, we're struggling with anything ever. And so, breaking down those walls a little bit, like removing that wall of, I don't know, intimidation or whatever it might
yeah,
be. I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
what we
Or
honestly
even stigma, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it might just honestly be stigma, like, removing that from the conversation, like, you probably get to know what your clients truly need more than, other fields.
I hope so. And I'm also, I mean, I feel like I should probably reevaluate this. I'm a little like too open on social media. I like really tell people how I feel about things. And so I think in that vein, I don't really want to like make myself smaller or tone
Mhm,
myself down. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
I've had people say like, "Okay, you're a little much on social media." And sure, that might be the case, but it gives people a really good sense of like where to start with me. Like who I
Yeah,
am and
yeah.
what I stand for and all of those things. And so I sometimes I do think I'm like, maybe I should, like mellow out a little bit more, but I also, I am who I am, and if you like it, great. And if you don't, great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, no, I've never thought you were too much on social media ever, and I think now what people are really wanting to do, like, in 2025 is build out their personal side of their brand or, like, share more about their life. For
Yeah.
instance, my business coach, she never shared a single thing about her life other than, like, her business side, and then she, cut off her engagement and is now building this whole personal brand about, like, becoming the woman she wants to be.
I
And
love
it has built, like, so much buzz around not just her business side, but also just her social media as a whole. She's getting so many new followers who are connecting with her so much deeper because she's, like, sharing behind the curtain a little bit more, and I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs try to do this, and so, no, never try to, like, dim yourself a little bit because of that, because now that's what people want. They want that honesty.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've been talking to a lot of people about like content strategy and all of the things that
Yeah,
in terms of like social media and the digital space, what we want to be posting and sharing about ourselves. And obviously storytelling has always been like a really big, such a buzzword and something that people
mhm,
use, but it's important like having that emotional connection to something. And sure, sometimes you're not for everyone. Not sometimes, nobody is for
yeah,
everyone. You know what I mean? Like so if someone connects with you for whatever reason, whether it's the personal side of your story or the business side of your story or, a marriage of the two, I don't know. I think that's the way to go because we aren't like these boxes or these like compartmentalized versions of ourselves. Like we are whole beings, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to do that more. I'm trying to share more about my personal life on social media, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll
I
get there
mean,
one
I think
day.
there's a line, like,
Yeah.
sometimes I do treat my social media like a diary a little bit, and, some people are like, "Yes, girl, spiral for us."
That's so
So
funny.
I do kinda like I am, needing to understand how to walk that line a little bit more carefully, but
That's hilarious.
yeah, I mean, you get to see who I am. And I've been taking people on this journey of like, I'm moving to Portugal and I'm,
Mhm.
doing all these things. And I don't know, I always get the most engagement when I share those things about myself. Like, more people respond to my stories, more people start conversations with me in the DMs and, on email and that kind of thing, which I personally really love. And I know that, it all kind of relates back to the niche that I chose and like my desire to be open about all of those things.
Yeah, and you mentioned to me that you went on a business retreat and are thinking of pivoting some
Yeah.
ways, and I think that is since you've been open to all new opportunities. That's cool that you know when it's time to pivot or time to be open to new things. So, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I just got back on Monday from a 4-day retreat in Mexico with
Oh,
some
wow.
really, really awesome women. And it's like a 6-month group coaching program. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned from that and from all the networking that I've done recently is like knowing that not everything you do has to be permanent. You know what I mean? I think
Mhm.
when I started this business, and sometimes a lot when I decide what next step to take, I think, and that's the perfectionist in me, is like, I think I have to have it all planned out and it has to be executed perfectly and it has to be, just like this ABC and no variations or no straying from that plan, right? I love, my coaches and all of these awesome people that I've connected with recently have been saying, you kind of got to give yourself permission to experiment and to play and to try things. And if it doesn't work out, like it doesn't work out, that's okay.
Mhm.
It's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? Like you can take what was I explaining the other day to someone a long time ago? Someone said to me, and she said it's called the lily pad theory, essentially, where sometimes you can't see like around the corner. You can't see like 3 lily pads down until you get to the next lily pad.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Until you jump onto it and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this new world just opened up to me that I didn't see 2 steps back." And so sometimes you kind of like got to take a step in the right or the wrong direction, and then you won't know until you take that step. And I think sometimes I and many other entrepreneurs kind of get stuck in that, like, I gotta stay and stick to this. And, things are going to change. Like social media changes every single day,
Yes.
especially in the last few weeks.
I know, it's
Um,
crazy.
Marketing, like email marketing, all these things change all of the time. And so sometimes what works for you will work maybe for like a few years and then it all of a sudden won't work anymore, or whatever
Mhm.
it is. And not being so like rigid and feeling like you have to stick to what you know or what you've tried before, but knowing like, okay, now's the time for me to try something new. Again, if it's not the right next step, I can always go take a step in a different direction.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think that was my long-winded way of answering your question. But with this retreat that we went on, I've started this like new game plan that I haven't tried in the last almost 7 years of me being a consultant and starting my business, is that I'm pivoting potentially into some other spaces. Not that I'm like doing a hard pivot or like
Yeah.
that I'm doing a hard stop on everything I've done that's worked for me so far, but it's like kind of trying to naturally transition me into something new, into something that like is going to work for me and my new life in Portugal and working abroad and living abroad. And yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of work to get there. And it's not going to be, completely like A to Z tomorrow, but um, I am excited. I shouldn't say I haven't been excited about business for a long time, but I've kind of been like, when you just kind of been coasting for a while and
Mhm. Mhm.
like you're just going through the motions to go through them. And I'm finally feeling like I'm in a place where I'm like reinvigorated and I'm like excited to wake up and get things done for my business and expand and grow. So
I love that. No, I think a lot of people wanna be in that, like, excited phase of business again.
yeah.
What made you realize this? Like, what opened your eyes to wanting to pivot?
As it always is, external circumstances, right?
Yeah.
I had this really wonderful client. I still have them, but they internally sort of like did a lot of restructuring that kind
Mm.
of like put me in a sort of precarious position as a contractor in their business. And that kind of like jump started something in me that said, hey, maybe it was okay for you to be coasting for the last 3 years, but like it's time to start doing something different. And what was working for 3 really long, wonderful, prosperous years is not really working anymore and is not going
Mhm.
to work moving forward. And you know how they always say, like, your business is always like 90 days or 180 days out, or, whatever it is. So I was
Yeah.
like, I should have started yesterday, but you can only do, hindsight is 2020. So I was like, at least if I just start today. And that was back in, I want to say, August.
Okay.
I really started like being more open to networking again. I was such a recluse during, the 2020 to 2023 years. And so I was like, I need to get out of my house. I need to meet people. I need to connect with more people. And I also really just need to like find some external information, learning, advice, knowledge. I really, how it is with working from home and working, as a business owner. Sometimes you kind of just like get in your own echo chamber and you kind of like have to break out of that. I
Yeah.
needed someone to hold me accountable to doing things. I needed someone to like hold my hand essentially. And so I found a really, really awesome program, the one that I just mentioned, the 6-month group coaching program. And I started like enrolling in memberships. I started, attending more networking events and things like that. And I think that really gave me sort of the fuel that I needed to move in a new direction.
I love that. Yeah. I think that taking the steps without knowing the final results can be scary.
Yeah.
But look at you now. I mean, you figured out what you wanted to do, and that wouldn't have happened without doing these results. And so, yeah, I think the best way to go into business and into networking is just being open to whatever's going to happen, whatever connections I meet is going to be perfect. I'm launching a podcast for one of my clients, and it's all about networking and how really business is about who you know. It's not about necessarily what you do, because if you don't know anyone, you're not going to be able to grow.
Hmm.
So I love that advice right there of just like getting in new circles, meeting new people. Whose program are you in?
It's the Bucket List Bombshells.
Okay.
They're amazing. And the program that I'm in is called Scale with Purpose.
Mm,
And they do have some other programs. So for folks who are like kind of in the earlier stages of employee to boss, they also have a launch camp, which is
yeah.
really great for, I'm like, they should sponsor me. The launch camp is for people who are like kind of just want sort of like an accelerator to get started with launching a new business. And then, once they like launch and grow and get to a point where they're ready to scale, that's the program that I'm in right now. And I've been in business for almost 7 years now.
Mm.
So I probably am a little late on enrolling in this program. Sometimes I'm like, I wish I had done this 2 years ago. But yeah, it's been so valuable. And I've also been a part of the Legacy Lounge with the
Mhm.
Founders Table that Alicia, one of your previous guests,
Yes, yeah,
um,
and she was also on my new podcast too,
love it.
Podcast Cafe. I was thinking about that earlier when you were talking about kind of the family aspect. We talk about that in her episode too, because her podcast is all about like sex, dating, relationships. And she's
Yeah.
like, I hope my parents don't listen. That'd be crazy if they did.
Yeah, and I just have been really lucky to have tapped into like a really wonderful community. And we were at one of the speed networking dinners,
Mhm.
what was it, like a week ago, 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago? I can't even, what is time? And so just things like that where it's just like reignited, I think, a spark in me that I don't want to say lost, but like it was like deep in a closet somewhere that I had to like rummage out again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And I bet the move to Portugal is really like making you think about what you really want to be doing and
Yeah.
reevaluating all of that. What do you think business is going to be like in Portugal? Are you planning on joining like groups there, or like what is your plan for once you move?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I went to visit back in September just to kind of scope out where I wanted to live and all of that stuff. And I met some really, really awesome people. I don't want to like be stuck in a, people who move to Lisbon, like Americans who move to Lisbon bubble. But I have met some like really awesome people who have moved there
Mhm.
from America specifically. And A lot of us are working remotely. And so, just connecting with those people. There are some really wonderful like cafes and co-working spaces and things like that. So I used to do a lot of events pre-pandemic, and part of me kind of wants to like start that up again when I'm over there.
Yeah.
It was very Seattle localized back then. And so maybe that's my way of like tapping into a new community, is like creating that space for myself.
I love that. Oh
Yeah.
my God, you're gonna have so many opportunities once you get over there. I'm gonna come visit you. I've
Oh,
never been to
please.
Portugal, so
That's what I've been telling everyone. I'm like, I'm getting a 2 bedroom or a 3 bedroom apartment
yeah.
so that people can like come visit me.
Oh, amazing. Okay, all right. I'll be there.
Please do. Please do.
No, this conversation has been really fun. I think that it's really great for people to hear like what's possible, and really you can find your niche in anything, and then when it's time to pivot, pivot. Like it's
Yeah.
really that it's not simple, but it's like really in terms that simple, right? It's like follow what life is leading you towards basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's like, what are these rules anyway? Who made rules that said we can't be open to whatever?
Mhm.
Who made rules that said we can't change direction if we want to? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I know it sounds so like live, laugh, love or whatever, but it's like you could literally do whatever you want to do. You're allowed to create whatever life you want to create. You're allowed to create whatever business you want to create. Like, you don't have to do what anyone else expects of you, what society expects of you. You get to like really customize things, especially in this day and age. Like, I don't think you're beholden to anything, really.
Yeah, we're really not. I think I think it was Mel Robbins, and she was talking about the creator of Spanx and how her business really grew really fast because honestly, she didn't know the rules of like the so quote unquote rules of
Yeah.
owning a business and like growing it. And she ended up in all these big stores, and everyone who started business before her with similar products was like, "How did you get into the store?" And she's like, "I just called them." They're like, "What do you mean you just called them?" Like most businesses don't get into these stores for years, but
Yeah.
she didn't know the rules that no one wrote, and so her business grew faster than so many other ones. And I mean,
Yeah.
look at it now, Spanx are everywhere.
Yeah, and it is one of those things of like, you I think rules are like self-imposed sometimes
Mhm.
too, And so like you said, just make the call. Like, just send that email. Just do the thing. Like, the worst you can get is no, and the worst that comes out of a no is that you try to get a yes somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't sure, I mean, we are, like, restricted to, we have to raise families and, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I get that there are restrictions. I'm not saying that there aren't,
Mhm.
but yeah, just try it, One of my, like, the best pieces of advice I've gotten recently is to detach yourself from the outcome and like be just excited about getting a no as you are about getting a yes. And I know that that's a lot easier said than done, but it has like changed my mindset so much. Like, I used to be so afraid to send that LinkedIn message or send that email like asking for a referral or whatever it is, and now I'm just like, fuck it. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to
Yeah,
curse on this
for
podcast.
sure.
But screw it. Send it, like, if they say no, then great. I don't care. If they say yes, that's also great.
Yeah, yeah. I had that mindset a while ago where I sent this proposal that was like I mean, it was priced right, but it was like, "Hi," and I it was this new offer that I had, and I sent it out to this client who's like a dream client, and I was like, "Oh my god, like, she'll never say yes." She ended up saying yes, and I've worked with her for almost a year now. So I'm like, it's just we just have to get past those things. Or like I recently raised my prices, and now every time I tell someone my new price, I'm like it hurts.
Yeah.
But I met someone who did the exactly similar to what I do, and she was charging more than me. So it's really just all in our heads of, what's right, what's wrong. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and I think some people are scared of like going into a niche or charging a certain amount because they're like, what if I just can't find people who want that.
Mhm.
And it's like, you will find people who want what you're offering at the price point, at the whatever that you're offering it at. You'll find it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might take longer than you want it to, but you'll get there. And especially if you like start speaking to the right people, you start saying it with your whole chest, you know what I mean? Not like
Mhm.
I'm still like working on this of like a no worries if not like energy,
If not, yeah.
but I do think like that's been one of my biggest things of working on, is getting out of that scarcity mindset of like, other people are doing this and they're, doing it for less and maybe I should charge less. And it's like,
Mhm.
that's not your audience, babe. Maybe
Yep.
your audience is someone who wants more value and will pay more for it,
Yeah.
and you will find those people.
You definitely will. You definitely will. I've loved that. This is not where I thought this conversation was gonna go, but I'm so happy it went here. This has been so fun.
I'm like, I hope it, there's a theme to it, and that you can,
Absolutely.
find a good title for this episode. But
Definitely. Live, Laugh, Love might be the title. No, I'm
live,
just
laugh,
kidding.
love. I love that.
Well, is there anything else you wanna talk about before we get into your action steps for the week?
I mean, I just like this space is awesome, and I definitely will be sharing it in my newsletter, because I love that you're like creating a space that there's so many topics that you go over, which is
Mhm.
so cool.
Mhm.
So anyway, thank you. Employee to Boss is awesome, and I'm excited to see like what's to come for you as well.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I started this podcast because I wanted to meet more people. This was like I started it right when I started my business, basically, or maybe a year in. I knew like no one in business and no one in the Seattle area because I moved up here during the pandemic. So
Right.
I was like, well, if I start a podcast, people will talk to me and I'll get to know them. And so
Yes.
that's how it started. But yeah, I love that. I think everyone just has such a cool story and so many different businesses. I mean, I interviewed someone on this podcast who has a listening service. Like, you call her and she listens to your problems. And she was so busy, she had to hire an employee. I go, did you give advice? No, she does not give advice. She just listens. And literally, the world is our oyster. We could do whatever we want. And that's why I love interviewing so many different
That
entrepreneurs
is
on this.
amazing. Like, what an example of
Yep.
like you can create literally whatever you want.
Yep, yep, I'll put that linked in the show notes because I think I was like, "It makes sense," but
So cool.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for sharing all of this on the podcast. I have one more question for you. Every week, I ask my guests to share 3 action steps for the audience to take based on the conversation. So, as you know, we all consume a lot of content every single week, and we don't always take action from it. So, I really want to challenge the audience to take action. So, what do you want to challenge them with this week?
Mm. I'm like, I would like it to be like a super cohesive 3 steps. It might kind of jump all over the place. I will say number 1 is kind of sitting down and just writing out like what you want your life to look like. Like your day-to-day, like you wake up and what do you want to do? By the time you go to bed, like what do you want to do? How do you want to feel? I think that's just like one way to really take a moment and take some stock in like how you want your life to look. Um Number 2 is really like take that and think about, where are all the places you can go. And maybe that's like listening to this podcast and seeing all the different ways that, people have structured their lives and their businesses, or just doing some research, whether that's like TikTok research or, Google research or
Yeah.
whatever, and seeing, like what aspects of other people's businesses or their lives do you like that you might want to implement into your own. And number 3, I don't know if this is like a concrete step or anything like that, but like maybe you write this down and you repeat it as an affirmation in your journal or your morning meditation or whatever it is, but like just telling yourself that you have permission to to do anything, that you have permission to change direction, that you have permission to just take the next right step. And sometimes we kind of just like either need to hear it from someone else or hear it from ourselves or read it in our journal or, you know, whatever it is over and over again. That, and maybe, you know, if you need to hear it from someone, I'm here to say it. Like, you have, I don't know if you want my permission specifically, but you have permission to do whatever it is that, you know, you want your life to look like, that you want your business to look like. If you want to just sit there and listen to people talk, that can be a business. If you want to, I don't know, go out there and, you know, design someone's yard, like, do that. If you want to,
Dogs.
yeah, take photos of dogs, take photos of people's, like, I don't know, oh my God, like, so random, but like MTV Cribs, you know, like if you want to
Yes.
like reboot that and go and like look at people's homes. I don't know, this is like, you know, a random assortment of all the things you can do with your life. But like, if you want to smoke weed all day, like, that's okay. You know what I mean? If you want to, you know, if you want to like track your orgasms, like, that's great. Do all of those things. You have permission. I don't know if those are three concrete.
I love those. No, I really do love those. I think that like the self work is the most important work we'll ever do. And so really getting clear on what you want to do, those are great 3 steps to do that. So thank you so much for sharing those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where can people find you? Where can people come and connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, I am on Instagram at AlmostConsulting and my website, AlmostConsulting.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn too, but I'm not as active on there right now. But yeah, Almost Consulting on all the places you're looking.
And who is this with you?
Oh, this is Jeremy. He is obsessed with attention.
He's so cute. My neighbor's name is Justin, so I feel like they should be friends. My neighbor's dog's name is Justin.
I love that. Justin and Jeremy. Yeah. So cute.
Aw. Well, Kieryn, thank you so much for joining me today. I cannot wait for this episode to go live.
Yes, thank you again so much for not only having me, but like having this space. It's so awesome. And I'm so excited to hear what everybody's actions are.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.